Hi again folks, how you all doing? This is a Hornby B12 that was sent to me by Matt. The story with this one is that he bought it second hand a few years ago, and shortly after that it suddenly lost power and would only crawl at half speed and then cut out. After doing a bit of googling and getting some advice from Hornby, Matt managed to get a suitable replacement motor and DCC socket. He replaced the motor, but the problem persisted, and he didn't much fancy fitting the replacement DCC socket himself, so he's asked me for help. Let's turn on the power and see what happens. Well, it's trying to move. It's pulling about 100 milliamps on the amp meter. That to me looks as if it's maybe a mechanical issue, you know, as if something is physically stopping the mechanism, but we'll see. Let's shove it into the shed and we'll have a wee look. Righty ho then, Hornby B12. I've looked at many old B12s, but I've never looked at a more modern one like this. Seems to be a very nice model, at least it looks very nice anyway. Nice detail in the cab. Yeah. So, what have we got? Fixing screw wise. I think we'll unplug the tender and undo the drawbar and take it from there. Sometimes that wee tool isn't that good. There we go. Tweezers are sometimes better. Right, I'll undo that. That detaches the tender, and has it released the body? No. Alright, there's a little screw at the back. That's kind of unusual. Sneaky wee screw in there. Right, there's a screw there, which I think just holds the front bogie on, but maybe there's a hidden screw underneath. And there is down in there. There we go. Right. Right, put all the bits and pieces away safely. Kind of seems okay. So my first thought was that the lubrication in the gearbox had dried up, and the model was just a bit seized. But that seems okay. Right, let's see if I can get power in there. There's not much room though. Yeah, see, that works okay. Interesting. So I don't see anything wrong with the locomotive, so we'll have a look in here. It's possible there's something weird. Oh, that coupling's been glued on. Got a horrible feeling there's a screw behind there. Let's undo this first of all. I hope there's not a screw behind this coupling because it's been glued on. There's a couple of screws down in there. Need to remove the brake rods. Yeah, good. Phew. Right, what have we got here? Okay, just another test to make sure that the locomotive is okay and the problem is in the tender. I've plugged the locomotive into my the tender of my J36, or one of my J36s. I can't put this on the track because the polarity is different on the J36. So if I put this on the track, it's just going to short out. But I've plugged it in, and that's at least completing the circuit. So, you know, power is going from the locomotive wheels to the DCC socket and back to the motor. So, turn on the power, and away it goes. Or did it? Yes, it is. Okay, so that pretty much confirms that the locomotive's fine. The problem is in the tender, and I think it can only be the DCC socket, possibly the blanking plate. Matt has provided a brand new socket and blanking plate, so I'll try swapping the blanking plate first of all, just in case, but I suspect the problem is the DCC socket. There's some electrical hoojimadoojery on there, and it must be faulty. Unusual symptom though. I've not seen that before. You know, it looks for all the world like just there's a physical problem with the model, and it's a mechanical issue, but nope, it would appear to be an electrical problem in here. So let's get this tender off, and we'll swap the blanking plate on that. Plug that back in. Take this blanking plate off and put this one on. Make sure it's the right way around. Right. See if it goes. No. Okay. So we're going to have to replace the socket. So if you look at this socket, it does have some electrical gubbins on it that this replacement one doesn't. But we're not running DCC, so it shouldn't really matter so long as we connect this up the right way. So these are the wires going to the pickups. The red wires and the black wires are going to the pickups, and the orange and grey wires are going to the motor. So on here we've got a red and a black wire that I think are going to the pickups. We've got two black wires that I think are going to the pickups. And we've got a black wire and a red wire that will be going to the motor. Now then, if that's one, I think we'll do it that way, but there's a risk we might get the polarity wrong here initially. So we'll need to get this off. The question in my head at the moment is, where do I solder the wires? Do I take them, let's get this off first. Right. Soldering onto here could be very difficult. And there. I think what would be easiest is just to desolder all the wires from this socket and desolder the wires on this replacement socket, and then solder these wires onto the new socket and do them one at a time and try that rather than trying to solder onto these tiny little boards. Yeah, I think that's what we'll do. So let's remove this. So we'll swap the white wire for that wire. This is going to be fun. Right, get that wire off. I need to get the solder out. It's out. And then we want to remove this white wire. And solder it on to here. Right, so I think I'll switch the camera off and I'll crack on and swap all these wires over and then we'll end up with a replaced socket, and we'll see if that fixes the problem. So there we go, there's the new socket, all connected up. Put the blanking plate in, that's the old one there, oops. So we'll stick this on the track and see if it runs. So I think I've got this wired up correctly. We'll soon find out. Let's turn on the power. Yeah, away it goes. So that's what the problem was, a dodgy DCC socket. There you go. So, here we go. Problem sorted. Just got to get this all back in place now. Yeah, it was definitely easier just disconnecting all the wires from the old socket and soldering them on one at a time onto the new one, rather than trying to solder anything onto the little connectors onto the board at the top of the plug. And there's another little connectors there that would just been a nightmare to do. It was much easier doing it that way. Right, let's get these wires down in there. Come on, play nicely. The model doesn't need anything else done to it, it's absolutely fine. It's just that dodgy DCC socket. Come on, screw, get in. And we're done. Front bogie wheels could do with a wee bit of a clean, so I'll give all the wheels a quick going over. Right, give this a final test. Okay, power on, and away it goes. Pulling about 150, 200 milliamps. Just out of interest, I want to test the old motor that Matt took out. I suspect the motor's absolutely fine, it was just that DCC socket that was the problem. So turn on power. Right, is this going to spin? Yeah. So that motor runs okay. Matt can keep it as a spare, just in case the one in the model ever packs up. Right, okay, we're done. Let's pull it out of the shed. So there we go, that's this Hornby B12 running again for Matt. A dodgy DCC socket. The old electricity at it again. Yeah, initially it looked to me to be a mechanical issue, but testing the locomotive proved it was fine, and process of elimination showed it was the DCC socket in the tender that was iffy. So replace that with the one that Matt sent, and that solved the problem. Nice model this. I like a B12 and they're right at home in my layout. I've got a few of the old Hornby models, but I think I'd quite like to get one or two of these more up-to-date ones at some point. Something to keep an eye out for. Okay, I shall get this packed up and sent back to Matt. Catch you later, folks.